Coral reefs are the most biodiverse ecosystems on the planet. Although they take up less than 1% of the ocean floor, they house over 25% of all marine species. These species depend heavily on coral reefs, as they provide home, food, and shelter for these many, many animals. However, there are many threats to our reefs. Most famously, there is coral bleaching. Bleaching is caused by climate change, which of course is a human-induced issue.
Is the process by which corals lose their microalgal symbionts. So corals are these animals that have algae living inside their tissues, and these algae photosynthesize and provide them with the energy that they need to survive. And when the water temperatures get too warm, this relationship between the corals and the algae breaks down. Um, and the algae are either expelled or they leave. Um, and the corals are left without a source of energy, and so they're essentially starving.
Those xanthellae that live inside their tissue and give them their color while providing energy through photosynthesis. When ocean temperatures rise above normal, corals become stressed and expel this algae in a process called bleaching. Without the algae, the coral turns white and loses its main source of food. The coral can recover. However, if the water stays too warm for too long, the coral can die and may be overtaken by algae. You may be wondering how this ties into climate change. Well, to understand that, we need to know what conditions are required for coral to thrive.
The majority of corals are I would say they're tropical corals. So they're like that kind of what you think of if you were to go to Indonesia or something or Australia. They like that high 70s, low 80s. They're really clean water. So if you're in an area that's really urbanized or a lot of runoff and stuff, they usually don't do well there.
However, as you can see, corals are rarely able to live in this type of environment. This graph shows the ocean temperature over recent years. As you can see, it has increasingly gone up. This damages the coral and eventually might kill it.
We clearly know that severe damage is being done to our reefs. But why does it matter if we lose them? For starters, coral reefs are entire ecosystems. Not only that, they are the most vibrant and biodiverse ecosystems on the planet. Our world has never lost a whole ecosystem before, and losing reefs would cause serious global damage. Coral reefs worldwide are home to over 1 million different species, all of which depend on them to survive.
First main effect on the coral reef will be a reduction in coral reef complexity, we call it. So complexity is the 3D structures and all the forms that are created by those coral reefs that provide a lot of sheltering services to many species. So a lot of species will depend on those complex structures, little holes, branching corals, plating corals to kind of hide in there, to reproduce in there, and to have their eggs and everything.
Unfortunately, bleaching is not the only damage being done to our reefs. One thing damaging coral reefs is severe pollution and runoff in coastal areas.
As a whole. This is an example of pollution or runoff Adi was talking about on Maui, which is where I do a lot of my work. And this is a bunch of dirt and probably pollutants and chemicals that have been run off with rain. And all of that is going to go directly onto the reef and do a bunch of bad things to it.
Pollution damage can come from any number of things, such as previously mentioned runoffs, but also things like leakages from sewer systems and even certain chemicals in sunscreens, which is a problem made worse by the immense amount of tourists each year visiting coral reefs. Another lesser-known problem that specifically impacts the Great Barrier Reef in Australia is the crown of thorns starfish.
Basically, it's a very big sea star that have very big spines and thorns that are very venomous for us. And those very big sea stars are corallivores. So they would eat the corals, on the hard skeleton corals. And they're native to the Great Barrier Reef, so to coral reefs. So their presence is not the problem, it's their amount that can be the problem. As in, if their population gets out of control for multiple reasons, they can actually decimate or very damage a reef.
Although we do not know the precise amount, there are estimated to be over 1 million crown of thorns in the Great Barrier Reef. They can kill up to 10 square meters of coral per year. However, not all hope is lost. There is so much work being done to try to save our reefs. For example, when it comes to the crown of thorns, the Australian Marine Institute of Science is monitoring the population of these starfish, and even intervene when the population gets too high. This significantly slows down the destruction of the reefs. However, when it comes to climate change, it is not that simple. It's a much larger, much more global issue, and it takes a lot more to solve it. Fortunately, there are many amazing scientists and organizations working towards solutions, with examples like supercorals, which are heat resistant, and large coral nurseries where they work to fix the damaged and bleached coral. And there's even things you can do to help. Firstly, you have to educate yourself, and you have to know what the issue is. And while this documentary is a great start, there is so much more to learn. You can also do things to help reduce climate change, like using a car less, which will help reduce fossil fuel emissions. And another great thing to do is be mindful that if you ever visit a reef, be careful not to touch or destruct the coral, and also use reef-safe sunscreen. However, the most important thing you can do is educate others and spread awareness. The more people know about a problem, the better. And although things may seem bad, that we can't come back, it is important never to lose hope.